Do you know who August Ringers was? Or perhaps you know Karel Kogge. Last year, I wouldn't have known one of them either. Now I do. One Sunday in January, my father took me to the Westhoek, the area known as a World War I battlefield. And we stopped at the sluice gates of Newport, where Karel Kogge, in those days, was a lockkeeper. One night in October 1914, he did something that would make him legendary. He opened the sluices of the Iser. Tons of seawater flooded into the Iser area. As a result, the canals in the valley spilled their water into the fields. Karel had caused an inundation, a natural defense against the advancing Germans, which meant a great support for the Allied troops. What does he teach us? August Ringers, a boy from Wipers, was one of those Belgian soldiers. He was 19, barely 2 years older than I am now, and all ready for a great adventure. Today we cannot imagine how tough August's life was, battling in the trenches. We cannot imagine how it feels sleeping in the rain. Imagine not sleeping at all, cursing the lice in your hair and the rats at your feet. Imagine constantly lying awake because of a constant fear. The fear for a sudden assault of the enemy, destroying everything you have, your trench, your friends, and finally, your existence. The fear to breathe. Imagine the fear to inhale chemical gases during your sleep, gases that burn your skin and your lungs. The fear of the terrible memories of the past day. And of course, the fear of the day to come. The fear of every tomorrow. August was a tough boy, but not a superhero. In the Battle of Passchendaele, some 600,000 men died, and among them, at least one Flemish boy. What does he teach us? Don't waste your time next Sunday. Visit August in Wipers. Today, Ishtar is a Syrian woman of 40. Her apartment in Aleppo was struck by a rocket. Half a year later, one of her family members lost his life in the chemical attack in Ghouta, together with some 1,500 others. What does she teach us? The cruelty of war is unpredictable. So is life. In that respect, Forrest Gump, who also fought in a war, was right. Life's like a box of chocolates, he said. You never know what you're gonna get. When Forrest found himself on the fronts of the Vietnam War, he probably cursed his box and the bitter chocolate that had led him there. In a short span of time, I have confronted you with August in Wipers, 100 years later with Ishtar in Aleppo, and between them briefly with Forrest in Vietnam. What has changed? Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Turkey, Ukraine, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Egypt, South Sudan, Somalia, Uganda, Mali, Nigeria, Mexico, Colombia. What has changed? We've learned quite a lot from our history, I think, but despite all the lessons of the Bible or of the Quran, despite all the advice of our teachers and parents, not that much about solving a conflict. But if nothing has changed today, what will change tomorrow? What does our future look like? Should we just eat our chocolates? Our future, option A. There will always be war. There will always be parties that benefit from war and that don't consider peace more important than their own wealth. Think of Russia selling weapons to Syria. Our future, option B. Who of us has ever known war? My grandmother has. She's 92, but neither her sons nor her grandsons have. For more than 2 generations, our European Union is a protector of this peace, making us talk and listen. Life's like a box of chocolates indeed. Never in history people could peer into the box, and we never will. But if our generation has learned anything from history, it is that democracy and communication are the basic ingredients of peace. You can be Karel, taking your responsibility. You can be August, picking up your gun. But without the flavor of words, life will always be a bitter chocolate.
Are you passionate about solving war or preventing it?
Um, actually, to be happy feels good. So to be optimistic feels good as well. And I'd like to be optimistic because, you know, since the very beginning, human culture has always been characterized by conflict and by fighting. So why would someone be so naive to say that this would change? But I think we definitely can, because the solution is, in my opinion, hidden in our ability to communicate. That's what distinguishes from the apes, for example. So I'd like to be optimistic about this, that yes, we can build a better future with this ability.
When looking at situations like Syria, like Ukraine, how do we find the balance between international peace and guaranteeing human rights for everyone?
Um, well, I think those go together. International peace and human rights. Um, yeah, you cannot have peace without respecting human rights. Um, so I forgot your question.
Basically, do you think it should be, is it correct for us to intervene militarily in order to protect
Yeah.
Syrians people's rights?
Well, I think we can when there is no other way. Like this quote from Margaret Atwood says, who was a writer, war is what happens when words fail. So when there is no other possibility anymore to solve a conflict with diplomacy, by communicating, and human rights are um, aren't respected in those regions, then I think we have almost the duty to intervene, and so be it military.
What can we as common people do to ensure we all have a better future?
Um, well, for example, you can support NGOs, charity, so non-governmental organizations. Um, you can really do that, and you can make a difference that way. Last Christmas, the most of us get presents, um, and but actually I didn't need anything anymore, so I just asked my aunt and my uncle to give some money to charity, and they gave it to me, but I gave it to an NGO, and you can make a difference that way. And you know, when each country would economize on one fighting plane, or when all the Mark Zuckerbergs in this world would share some of their capital, we wouldn't have to deal with extreme poverty anymore as well. But as long as they don't do that, we can.
What could bring us on the brink of a third world war?
The present day crisis in Crimea, maybe, because I certainly think this is a wake up call. I don't think we should already fear it, but we should certainly be concerned about it, because when it really comes to an escalation between the eagle of the United States and the bear of Russia and even the dragon of China, when it comes in, then it might become quite a zoo over there, an animal farm, as George Orwell created one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Degruyter.